Tarouk. Toronto remains under an extreme cold warning tonight. It has been a weekend of bone-chilling wind chills, and it's being felt by the city's most vulnerable. The city's temporary shelters are under pressure, and as Talia Ricci reports, homeless advocates say the cold is just one of many concerns.
See a little brown spot here on my nose? That's from frostbite.
Frostbite that comes with frigid temperatures. Blair Wall calls this corner home. And he says even during periods like this of extreme weather, he chooses to stay here because he doesn't feel safe in the temporary shelters.
Just waking up in the morning every morning is hard. Like just to get yourself going in the mornings. Just the cold by itself slows everything down, let alone having to put all the extra layers on.
Behind the scenes, volunteers who want to help ease the struggle through a visit and a warm cup of soup.
We're taking it all out to the streets to sort of take care of people out there who need a nice warm meal.
And they're seeing firsthand the cost of living on the cold street.
From what I've seen or heard, it's frostbite. Again, when it snows, people's clothes get soaked, can lead to hypothermia.
In an effort to at least have people on the streets remain visible, the group is also distributing these bands. This following 2 deaths this month that highlighted safety concerns for the homeless. One woman died when she was crushed by a truck backing down a dark alley where she was sleeping. Another died after she became trapped in a clothing donations bin.
I call Toronto the epicenter of a homeless disaster that's happening across the country. The warming center has about 35-40 people in it, but it'll close maybe on Monday or Tuesday when the weather shifts. But in the meantime, 1,000 people are still going to be in these situations that are not real shelters.
The city says the system is under more pressure because of the cold, but they're not turning anyone away.
When we do have an extreme cold weather alert, as we do right now, we are able to activate some additional spaces that we have so that we can ensure that everyone that wants to come inside can. We also increase the number of street outreach teams we have available.
As the work week begins and the freezing temperatures tighten their grip, warnings will encourage people to stay indoors and keep warm. Blair is a reminder that not everyone has a choice.
I'm outside all the time, 24 hours a day.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
And just a note, if you're in Durham region and you've got kids, school buses have been cancelled for tomorrow because of the extreme weather. Now in Toronto, city plows have been busy cleaning up the snowy mess on the streets, but the director of city operations says heavy winds are blowing snow all over their plans.
These extreme cold temperatures and the blowing snow, you will see some snow on the roads. We will cycle back and get that snow later on today. We hope these roads are in great condition by the Monday morning commute.
Cleanup will continue through the night. Crews will begin clearing areas with parking restrictions in the morning. You can find out about the plow progress in your area on the city's website. And if you have any concerns about dangerous sidewalks or roads, call 311. The entire weekend has been a frigid undertaking for residents, but also for some tourists who may have been caught by surprise.
Cold.
It's pretty cold, not what I'm used to, but I also think it's beautiful as well.
No hat?
No. Don't need.
Part of the adventure. Friday we stayed in Toronto, then we went to Niagara Falls. There it's very cold, while the water is freezing. But we had a good time, eh?
Bone-chilling it may be, but these tourists refuse to be held back. Armed with warm winter gear, they battled the cold to get to our local sites. Downtown Toronto received less snow than other areas. Ottawa saw about 20 centimeters of snow over the weekend, and it is bracing for another 12 centimeters tonight. There is an overnight parking ban on city streets, and some flights at the Ottawa airport were also delayed. The airport is asking travelers to check for updates online. Whiteout conditions in Hamilton as well. The city dug itself out of 40 to 50 centimeters of snow today, and residents are not above having some fun with the cleanup. These two cold-blooded fossils stunned neighbors as they were shoveling their driveways. Big hit on social media too, those two were. Let's check in with Sophia for how it's looking, I guess, for the Monday morning commute.
It's going to be a cold one. Blowing snow is still a possibility, but you saw those dinosaurs. We're all about making the best of it. Can you make the best of what feels like the minus 40s, though? Even in the northern edge of the GTA, overnight, it's not much improved for your Monday morning. If you're commuting from Barrie or from Peterborough, you're commuting what feels like minus 40. Minus 33 for the city of Toronto with the wind chill, and then minus 21. The feels like for the afternoon is the warmest it's going to get for the start of your workday. It is Arctic air that is funneling right over the poles and kind of right into our neck of the woods. It's modified of sorts, but not by much. It's why the extreme cold warning is due to last and linger until at least Monday morning. You know, the city's vulnerable or the most at risk. When will it finally warm up is what you would like to know. Tuesday into Wednesday, our next system comes. It's when this brilliant high pressure that's bringing us all the sunshine and the bitter cold will finally leave. We'll have a quick shot of snow followed by a bunch of rain. Yes, it will be warm enough Wednesday for rain. Your temperatures will inch above the freezing mark. A couple things we're going to talk about in a few minutes when I see you. The big Banza Lake effect off the Sarnia and the Lambton shores. Bunch of road closures there. Very low visibility, very cold wind chills. If you have to be stopped there, be careful driving. And we'll also talk about how it's perfect timing at the end of the show to go check out the Super Blood Wolf Moon Eclipse. Pretty good visibility and low cloud cover in southern Ontario right now, so you'll probably get a good shot of a beautiful moon.
Which is great news, Sophia, because that is exactly where we're going to next. We have got a treat for our viewers. You're looking closely at a rare lunar eclipse that Sophia was just talking about. Just above the CN Tower there, you can see it peeking in the corner. Now, this type of eclipse has been seen only 3 times in the past 2 centuries. It is called, remember this, Super Blood Wolf Moon. A partial eclipse has already begun on its way to a total eclipse. So, what makes this celestial event extra special? Kelda Yoon explains.
The celestial event tonight has been dubbed on social media as the Super Blood Wolf Moon, a pretty dramatic name. To break it down for us, I'm here with science journalist Ivan Semenik. Ivan, where does this name derive from?
Well, it's a bit of a nickname. You know, we live in the era of social media. Everything has to have a brand, and these days even lunar eclipses have a brand. So what we're seeing tonight is a total eclipse of the moon. When the moon goes completely into the Earth's shadow, it tends to turn a dusky red color. So that's what makes it a so-called blood moon. It's also a supermoon because the moon is at that point in its orbit around the Earth where it's much closer than average. So it actually looks a little bit larger, about 14% larger than average. Finally, it's a wolf moon because according to the Farmer's Almanac and some other sources, some indigenous people called the moon, at the full moon at this time of year, a wolf moon.
The last time there was a total lunar eclipse was July 27th, 2018, but it wasn't visible in the Western Hemisphere. This time, though, you will want to get your binoculars out. In our region, just past 10:30 is when the partial eclipse began.
First, the moon will look totally round, and then you'll see just a little bit of a darkening on one edge of the moon. That'll gradually grow till it looks like the moon is being eaten up by this dark shadow.
Then, around 11:40 is when the total eclipse will begin.
You start to see that deep orangey look, and depending on conditions in Earth's atmosphere, we might see a darker, a kind of brownish moon, or more of a bright reddish coppery moon.
The colors will be at their most vivid 12 minutes after midnight.
As long as you can sort of look up at the time that the eclipse is happening, as long as you can see the moon, you will see the eclipse.
And if you miss it, you will have to wait until May 2021. Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
After a U.S. Catholic school apologized for a student group mocking an Indigenous elder, the boy at the center of the video is now defending himself. We will have the details for you after the break. On the eve of Martin Luther King Day in the U.S., Americans are struggling with a racially charged moment. You may have seen the video. A smiling white teenager wearing a Make America Great Again hat, seeming to mock an Indigenous elder who's drumming and singing. Well, tonight, the boy says he was actually trying to defuse the situation. Paul Hunter has more.
It is an unsettling scene. On the steps of the Lincoln Memorial Friday, an Indigenous elder, Nathan Phillips, at the end of a march in Washington for Indigenous rights, and a high school student from Kentucky who stood staring and smiling, while those behind him laugh and chant, some waving their arms up and down in what's derisively known as a tomahawk chop. And those red ball caps with Donald Trump's slogan, Make America Great Again, a term which for many in this country has come to symbolize resurgent racial intolerance. What did Nathan Phillips feel?
Fear, not for myself, but fear for the next generations, fear where this country's going.
In our country right now, in the United States, there is a racially charged atmosphere.
Chase Iron Eyes, an Indigenous activist from North Dakota who was at the memorial as it all unfolded, blames the divisive language of Donald Trump.
Any objective, reasonable mind is going to be able to interpret that he's giving license to some of this behavior.
Tonight, in a statement, the student said a group of religious demonstrators had been taunting them, so they chanted to drown them out. He says the Indigenous elder then, separately, singled him out, and the smile was simply to show he wasn't angry.
Initially, when I first watched it, I felt heartbroken.
Victoria's Nikki Sanchez, who fights for Indigenous rights in British Columbia, was a featured speaker at the march Friday. She saw the episode online. In her view, it highlights all the work still to be done.
Sadly, I think for many Indigenous people, this clip was not shocking. This clip was not something new. This clip was a representation of the attitudes and behaviors that we experience as Indigenous people on a daily basis.
The students eventually turned and walked away. In Kentucky, their school apologized for what they'd done. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
British Prime Minister Theresa May suffered a setback last week when Parliament rejected her plan to leave the European Union. May is due to present a revised Brexit plan tomorrow. Last week, MPs voted 432 votes to 202 to reject May's deal, which proposed up to a 20-month transition period to negotiate a free trade deal. It was the largest defeat in history for a sitting British government. May narrowly survived a no-confidence vote the next day, but while she is expected to come back with a new plan, some politicians say it is unlikely the March 29th deadline for leaving will be met. The opposition Labour Party says it now seems inevitable that Britain will have to ask the EU for an extension. 16 schools across the province got a perfect score on an elementary school ranking released today.
Parents need the information, but also if we can provide information that would encourage the education community to think again about where to find clues to how they can improve. It seems to me like it's an obvious source.
The Fraser Institute looks at the performance of over 3,000 Ontario schools based on students' reading, writing, and math EQAO scores. The schools are then given a grade out of 10. All but 2 of the schools with a perfect score are in the GTA, most of them private schools. The GTA is the highest performing region, followed by Eastern Ontario, Southwestern Ontario, and then the Central and Northern regions. The Fraser Institute's scorecard has been criticized for relying too heavily on standardized testing. Well, more than 100 people came together in Windsor today to honor Mike Caron. It was a celebration of life event for the man who was just 30 when he died of a suspected drug overdose back in November. He was a culinary student and a father. His family hopes to raise awareness and let people know help is available.
For anybody struggling out there, my message to you is to get some help. Being a father and having my son pass because of an addiction and because of his mental health, it was really difficult. There are places here in Windsor to get some help with. You can look online. You can go to any of the places that they have. You can go to a meeting.
Loved ones remember Karen as a good person who was always around to help a friend in need. His death has been part of a larger conversation around the drug crisis in Windsor. Community leaders and health officials have been calling for concrete action to prevent future deaths. Quebec Provincial Police are investigating after a nearly century-old covered bridge went up in flames Saturday night.
It's all was that when I got here myself, the bridge was fully engulfed. It was smoke, fire, and it was fully engulfed. And but by the time the fire department got here, I got here right after them. The bridge had already fallen into the creek, so there's not a whole lot that they could do to actually save the bridge.
Well, it broke my heart. It just is a terrible thing to have happen. It's completely unnecessary. It's just a part of everyday life around here, and it'll be terribly missed.
Police and firefighters were called to the bridge around 6 p.m. Saturday, where they found Pont Kelly completely engulfed. They battled the fire but could not save the wooden structure that has been destroyed. No one was hurt, but police say the fire is considered suspicious. Well, here's another look at the super blood wolf moon tonight. Up there in the corner atop the CN Tower. The total eclipse will begin in around 20 minutes and it will be at its most vivid at 12 minutes after midnight. So if you're thinking about stepping outside to see it, bundle up for that extreme cold. We'll tell you if there's any relief in sight in our long-range weather forecast. That's after the break. Regent Park families say they're being pushed out of their new state-of-the-art swimming pool, a facility that was built to revitalize their community. One woman says she lined up for 3 hours at 4 in the morning to register her kids in the swim program.
It's horrible, and I was frustrated by when I find out when she told me it's full. My son was frustrated. Mom's like, I feel sorry that you lined up, but just leave it, he said.
According to a report by City Councillor Kristen Wong-Tam, about 70% of users are not from Regent Park.
There are, of course, BMWs and Audis and Mercedes parked outside these facilities, and that's a story that's told to me by our local community. And I assure you that our local TCHC community is not driving those vehicles. But more importantly, it's not about keeping other people out of these facilities, but it's rather expanding the program.
Wong-Tam called on the city to give priority to children from Regent Park for the programs. City staff are now making a plan to accomplish that. They will present possible solutions by fall. There's no shortage of quality performance arts in Toronto, but not everyone has access to it. That is the mission for Prologue to the Performing Arts, an organization that aims to ensure all students experience the arts. Actor Leslie McCurdy prepping for performance at Dr. Marion Hilliard Public School. Her one-woman show called Things My Four Sisters Saw, about the little-known stories of 4 Black women who made an impact on Canadian history.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child.
I didn't feel like I fit in. Growing up in Canada because, being a visible minority and everything. And so it talks about those experiences, and I found that knowing history, my history in this country, my people's history, helped me to feel more rooted and grounded and like I was a part of the Canadian mosaic.
It's a performance these students might not otherwise have a chance to see. And it's where Prologue to the Performing Arts steps in, a nonprofit group dedicated to ensuring every student is exposed to the arts.
One of the things that's very important to Prologue is to explore what would be preventing a school from bringing in a performing arts experience into their school, and what can we do to address some of those barriers, because we really feel that every student in Ontario should have equal access to performing arts.
It's just one of a growing slate of performances Prologue has provided to schools across the province, 1,800 performances and workshops a year that reach 500,000 students from the GTA to Sarnia and Sudbury.
And hopefully Prologue and the artists that we work with who are doing tremendous work can help with that, and provide opportunities for young people to think, maybe that's something I could explore further and really become kind of lifelong lovers of the arts.
For these middle schoolers, it was a chance to learn in a different way.
I think it was pretty special that we got to see it firsthand, different from reading from a textbook.
I thought it was very inspirational. I thought it was a very good performance.
They say that if you touch one person's life, then that makes you a success. And in 20 years, I've had quite a few people tell me that I've touched them in this play and the other play that I do about Harriet Tubman. And so I find that very rewarding.
It doesn't matter where you come from or how long you're here. Once you're here, you're Canadian. And to me, that's a great thing to be. This land is your land, this land is my land. This land is made for you and me. Let's live in it together and in peace, shall we? Thank you.
So warm in that school, but that was inside. And Sophia, I know, outside, a much different story for us this weekend.
Warm and in school will be the good place to be as you begin Monday. Maybe not commuting to school or to work. Okay, when it feels like minus 21, I feel like we in Southern Ontario have earned the griping rights. I give you full permission. This is how I start the long-range forecast, because for many, this cold will continue to dominate our memory of this work week, even as we head into the last week of January as well. Okay, in a snapshot, 2 more kind of cold days, but lots of sunshine to be had. And then we have a warm day. Look, up by 10 degrees, but it's going to be active. Quick shot of snow and rain. I'll detail that for you. Possibility of lake effect. And then the take home for the end of the week is going to be a more cold possibility. The setup will be similar to what we have right now, where a north wind can funnel in all that modified Arctic air that we are getting so acclimatized to. Extreme cold warning to start off your work week. And then who knows what happens for the end. But first, for the middle of your work week, this Bermuda high will help scoop up some Gulf moisture. It'll warm us back up to above the freezing mark. It's a quick shot of snow that will start Wednesday. And then, yes, it'll be warm enough for some mixing and some rain. If you want to talk about snow piling up, it won't be Tuesday into Wednesday, but it's happening as we speak. The Sarnia and the Lambton shores. Think about it. Wind chills in the -30s, zero visibility, road closures on the 402 in both directions. Not a good place to get stopped if you are in any dicey conditions right now. Similar conditions to continue throughout much the day Monday. Snow squall warnings and watches are in effect there for you. And then now, a perfect time. I'm watching the cloud forecast for you. Very, very low cloud cover and really good pockets for you to see the moon. And if you miss it, you have 2021 to look forward to.
Just around the corner. Thanks, Sophia.
You're welcome.
And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you for watching. Now, as we go, we are going to show you one more time that super blood wolf moon. This time we zoomed in a little bit for you so you can see it going across the Toronto sky tonight. Stay warm, everyone. Have a great night.